Hey everyone, I'm Steve Beale from the British Association of Anger Management, and with me is its founder, Mike Fisher. Hey Mike.
Hi.
So today we're here to talk to you about the Anger Academy, which is where we train our counsellors, because right now the world needs more anger management coaches and facilitators. So, for example, the British Association of Anger Management has just begun its first ever 8-week group course during the summer holiday season. That's due to demand. And where's that demand coming from? Well, I mean, you can probably guess, but to go into a bit more detail, the phrase that's being used a lot right now is anger incubator, which is the state we're living in, which is a lot of high tension caused by the pandemic, the economic fallout from said pandemic, and any civil unrest. And that's not to mention that even before 2020, the figures were very high for anxiety, stress, and anger. Now, in lockdown right now, apparently as much as 1 in 10 Britons are suffering from suicidal thoughts. Domestic violence reports to police, so that's just the reports to police, have gone up by 20%. The Financial Times is warning of a jobs bloodbath, with 9 million people currently having their wages paid by the government furlough scheme. The Institute of Fiscal Studies estimates that 500,000 of those, or that those and others, will encounter mental health difficulties due to economic issues faced by the pandemic, after the pandemic. And even with lockdown easing, the Mental Health Foundation says that just in June, still 49% of people were suffering from anxiety, so almost half. So that the worst pressure could actually be to come, and nobody knows quite what to expect from the new normal. Will it involve more economic challenges, further civil unrest, even, or maybe perhaps a second wave of the virus? Certainly some of us are going to be spending even more time in close quarters with the same people, and others won't have any interaction at all. So the Anger Academy from the British Association of Anger Management provides psychoeducational training to help people from all walks of life deal with issues relating to anger, anxiety, and stress. Mike's here, he's going to talk to us in more detail about some of the work the Anger Academy does. Listen along, and maybe you'll decide that a career or coaching, at least in anger management, might be for you. So Mike, firstly, tell us a bit about the courses themselves. I saw this phrase, psychoeducational. Is that rather than therapeutic? Is there a difference? Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Sure. Well, thanks for the introduction, first of all. Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
I appreciate that. So let me just do it the long way around. When I started training as a therapist, one of the issues that we never dealt with was anger. The other issue we never dealt with was shame. And of course, the other issue that we didn't deal with was sex and sexuality. That's changed in the last 33 years. I have no doubt about that. But when it comes to anger management, what I discovered while I was still exploring my own issues with anger, that therapy did not cut it. I needed technologies, I needed tools, I needed methodologies in order to manage my own anger. And so some of the courses I did in the UK, which was well over 33 years ago, just didn't really cut it for me. And so what I did is I went off and I started to investigate programs in the States. And what I discovered is that the most effective way of me learning how to manage my own anger was psychoeducationally. So what we have is we have education, where you're learning skills, and then we have the psychology. You marry the two, you get psychoeducational.
Right. Okay.
And that has been working very, very effectively for us for at least the last 22 years. When we ourselves delivered programs through the Center for Men's Development, which I was part of at the time, we used to deliver them in the format which would be defined as group therapy. So you'd have a bunch of men, many of them, sitting around on a Saturday and a Sunday, talking about their anger. But we weren't teaching them skills. However, they still were the most popular programs because nothing else existed besides the stuff that we were delivering on.
Right.
So the real success of our programs are because they are psychoeducational. There is a workbook, there is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end. Far more effective than therapy. Now, how do we know that? I know that simply because the amount of people that have come to us with anger management problems have already been to see their doctor. The doctors have then referred them on to counseling or psychotherapy. It's not been effective at all because all they do is sit and talk about their anger, but nothing gets done about it. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. So the grounding is in psychology, Freud, Jung, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the teaching is very practical.
Yes.
And very goals based.
Yes.
And I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of people that come for anger management, but the vast majority of them have no therapeutic experience, do they?
Well, you know, Steve, that's the really interesting point, is that, you know, when I sit in a group and I ask people for the first time, you know, who here has done any form of personal development,
mm-hmm.
you know, you'd probably have like maybe 1/3 of the group, if that, who've done any form of personal professional development. And it's always shocked me that they can stay out of, you know, the counseling or the psychotherapeutic industry for as long as they have.
Mm-hmm.
However, what's the advantage to me, of course, is I've got them right, ready, and as hungry as hell in order to actually get their teeth into doing some work around anger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so why do they want to learn skills, that the people that come in? Obviously, they have to deal with their anger, but why is it quite so pressing for them? And who are the best people to teach them those skills?
So look, the people come, it's from my point of view, it's really interesting because people, as I often say, people don't come, you know, because they're having these fantastic lives. They come because their lives are in absolute crisis. You know, we are like the last resort. There's this term that people often use, the last, what's it, the last saloon or last chance?
Drinking in the last chance saloon.
That's exactly it. So their lives are in ruins. Their wives are fed up. Their kids are fed up. Their husbands are fed up. Their families are fed up. Their bosses are fed up. Their staff are fed up. Their colleagues in organizational settings are fed up. And so it takes them a really long time to get to us. But when they get to us, they're in crisis, which is absolutely fantastic because we want them buckled in pain. We want them committed and dedicated to doing something about it rather than throwing money at it and then going away and nothing sticks.
Right, I see.
So I think that answers the first question. But
yeah, and the second one was who are the kind of best people to come in and teach those skills? What kind of?
That's the interesting question. So look, we've trained up 210 people to date.
Right.
And not all of those people deliver anger management in the same way that I do. You know, a lot of those people work in organizational settings. They work in the NHS. They work in schools. It's an extra tool in their toolkit when they're dealing with clients who have anger issues.
Right.
I'm not even too sure how many people are delivering programs in the same way that I do, but there certainly are a handful of people who do what exactly I'm doing, delivering programs in exactly the same way as I deliver programs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a person comes along, trains in anger management, and then does what I do. They've got so many different avenues to actually explore opportunities when it comes to anger management. But who comes along, which is really interesting. It's not dominated by counselors and psychotherapists or psychiatrists. I mean, we have had a few in the past. They tend to be people who recognize that they themselves had an anger problem and they themselves went through the program that I delivered on. It touched them very deeply. and they made a different career choice. They decided to train in anger management. So it usually will come from people who we have trained. However, that's not entirely true. We've also had people with counseling backgrounds and psychotherapeutic backgrounds, psychologist backgrounds, and of course psychiatric backgrounds, because they want to add it to their skill set, boost their income, and offer much more than just counseling or psychotherapy. There are so many counselors and psychotherapists who promote themselves as anger management specialists. They're not. And that's where the problem lies for them, not for me, because eventually they come and knock at our door, or people who are trained by us, their doors.
And equally, it sounds like the client base has grown a lot. I'm just sort of picking up on what you're saying, but it seems like whereas you guys might have started out doing a bit more sort of personal therapy work, more with professionals perhaps who were referred by their families or by their place of employment. And now you guys are working with, say, frontline public service organizations, teaching their frontline workers how to deal not only with their own stress and anxiety that might come up from doing a really hard and important job, but also dealing with members of the public who may be suffering from anger outbursts as well. Yes. So there's a lot of different ways that this training can be applied.
Yeah, I mean, the way I describe it, there's so many different target audiences. It's about you being able to identify how to reach your target audience and how to speak to that particular target audience, whether it is in the NHS, whether it's in schools, whether it's in the military, whether it's in the police, whether it's in charitable organizations, psychotherapeutic charitable organizations, or counseling charity organizations. And so there's so many different avenues, but to specifically concentrate on anger and anger management. And of course, we can't exclude stress management from anger management because they're part of the same family.
Well, sure. I mean, if you could just talk a little bit about that and about how, I mean, from what I can tell, that the anger outbursts are often the surface manifestation of the issues.
So I think the important piece here is that when people come to our programs, and I must be absolutely clear about this, that's the presenting problem. That's what that is. By the time they leave our programs, they realize that they have issues with stress. They might have post-traumatic stress disorder. They might have a long history of shame or toxic shame, which is, not unusual. And then, of course, there's a whole range of other traumas. There's a whole range of other traumas that they also have to deal with. But at least they can start working on their anger and anger management. And then once they've completed the training, they can then go on to seeing a counselor or local psychotherapist for any of the other issues that they've actually discovered within the context of anger management. Now, the advantage that I have is because I am a trained counselor and a group facilitator, and I've got well over 32 years of experience under my belt, which has meant that when people come to my anger management programs and they wanted to continue doing one-to-one work with me because of my background in counseling, that's always the strawberries and cream. So what I'm suggesting there is that it doesn't just stop with group work. You can do group work, you can do one-to-one work, you can do couples work, you can do work with families, you can do work with children. That's the kind of training that we offer. So it's an all-rounded training. But keeping in mind, it is in the context of anger management. Now, I also do know, Steve, that some of our leading people that have been trained by us have gone on to train as counselors and psychotherapists. Right. So that is a great advantage and a great skill set. A lot of my one-to-one work today tends to just be counseling. And in fact, it's not often that I do one-to-one anger management, because I'll do what I can to drive people toward group works. And as you know, the great advantage that we do have with the pandemic today is people have become very, very comfortable working and using Zoom. They don't have to leave the comfort of their own home. They don't have to leave the comfort of their own office. They don't have to travel across the universe to get to us. Because of the pandemic, as you already know, it's going to be here for a little while. So it's much safer for clients to participate in programs on Zoom. And where we've been very, very excited and been very successful, we're now delivering programs. Historically, our average program was delivered to about 14 people at a time, whether it was a weekend program or a 10-week program, which we used to only deliver in London. We're now getting like 15 people up to 20 people. And that's so, so exciting. And it's so convenient. And of course, it's cost effective because we don't actually have to pay for room hire at this point. So it's more money in my pocket.
And how about the audience? How is that growing? Because I mean, you mentioned Zoom. Does that give the opportunity to teach all over the world?
Well, look, I mean, it's absolutely incredible from my point of view. I'm delivering programs to people in Guam, which is this island in the South Pacific. I deliver programs to people in France, in Germany, in Morocco, in Italy, in Spain, of course, in the UK and America. So there are people coming from all over the world. And it's quite a convenient time frame when we deliver our programs that actually suit them as well. I'm working with a bloke at the moment. In fact, a guy who's attending one of my groups at the moment, he's in, where is he? He's in Seattle. So it's 12 o'clock noon for him and it's 7 o'clock at night for us. So it's very, very convenient for him. And that's why what's so exciting about what we're doing now, of course, is expanding internationally. It's an international marketplace. It's not just a UK or European marketplace. And the other thing that's so exciting, Steve, is that people can take the material and they can translate it into their own language. So for example, we have a bloke from Italy who's already attended our programs and loved our programs. And now he's done a massive career change. He speaks English and he speaks Italian. So he can both deliver to the Italians and of course to the English. Very, very convenient.
Could get quite intense over the Italian anger management meeting. So, I mean, tell us a bit about the training because it's quite rigorous, right?
Look, the feedback that we've often got from people, Steve, and it's a pleasure to hear that. But people have said, some of the people that we've trained have said it's probably been one of the best training programs that they have ever attended. In fact, if you remember, there was this woman called Tanya Heasley who was on the podcast that we did on the Age of Rage.
Yeah.
She's a trained psychologist, trained in some other areas of personal development. And she said the best training she's ever been on is the anger management program. And the anger management program has to be rigorous. And the reason for that is the nature of the clients that we're working on. Not your average neurotic. These are people who are suffering profoundly from anger. So we want to give them as many skills as we possibly can, but the people who train with us, we want to give them the best training to work with that particular client. I'm just going to have some water.
You go for it. Hydration, very important. So
Exactly.
we were just talking about why the training is quite so rigorous.
So look, we do what we can to cover all bases. So the training is, besides the kind of academic work, it's also educational. So it's experiential. You're doing exercises with me online, and the e-learning component to the program, you're watching videos, you're listening to podcasts, and you're reading material. And of course, there's some tests that are done that need to be done as well. So we want to know that you know the material. And basically on the basis of it being an all-rounded program covering virtually every single base we possibly could, there is extra reading material that people can read up on inner child work or some of the personality disorders that people suffer from. But it's just background material that people can familiarize themselves with. So when they are dealing with somebody who's challenging, they can actually also suggest that they can do a whole range of different personal development programs will just enhance the skill set and just make them much healthier mentally, that is.
And I think I read that, is it 83% of the people who go on the course give it the top marks?
it's 3% waste of time, waste of money. Yeah. My view is those people are sent. 15% say it works when they work it and it has to be worked. And 82% of people have said, even after 18 months, it's still doing the job. And that's the kind of statistic that makes me very, very happy, because it's not easy to manage. It's not easy to manage anger. And on the basis of that, you know, people have to work the program. If they could just take the magic pill, of course, that's what they would do. But coming back to the actual trainers themselves,
Yeah.
It does involve a personality type who is totally 100% committed to not only delivering programs, but also to generating their own business. And of course, where we can help them, we will help them. So it's not just, for me, it's not just about you come along, you do a rigorous training like the ones that we deliver, and, you know, push you out into the marketplace. We'll give you as much support as we possibly can in order to reach out to new market audiences internationally, not just nationally, internationally. And then, of course, one of the things we also want to do is some of the best trainees that are on our programs, we also want to offer them work. And I'm very keen for people with foreign languages, either the foreign language being the second language or English being the second language. I would love to train up people who have foreign languages under their belt so they can deliver, whether it's in Italian or whether it's in German or whether it's in Spanish, whether it's in Russian, I don't really care. But having a second language is also a great opportunity to actually capture those market audiences as well.
Right, fantastic. How long does it take, the training?
So at this point, the training takes 7 months. We've extended it, usually takes 6 months. We've extended to 7 months because all of the training, bar the last 4 days, is where we meet on a retreat to complete whatever we need to complete from the 6 months. So it's a 6 months training, and all that information, of course, is on the Anger Academy's website. The dates are there, the prices are there, but it's going to be 6 months of focused intention and a fair amount of rigorous and hard work.
And the address for that website is anger.academy, yeah?
That's what it is.
Okay.
So with regards to the amount of hours, Steve, what we have is we have live Zoom online evening sessions. That's 54 hours of training, and it's on a Monday night. Every Monday night, bar public holidays or school holidays, yeah? And then there's compulsory individual e-learning, and that's about 70 hours. And if you take it over 70 hours, I think it's about 10 hours extra a week, plus minus, give and take. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, the final 4-day retreat, we don't have a location for that. We'll probably deliver that in Spain, where I live in Santander, when I'm not in the UK, of course. And that 4-day retreat will be something from 9 in the morning to about 8, 9 o'clock at night, because the 4-day retreat is cleaning up what still needs to be covered if we have to catch up with anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then it will involve people doing presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it'll also involve the marketing and the social media component, which hopefully we'll have you on to deliver that, because it's so fundamental to what we're doing. So those are the 4-day retreats. But the dates are actually up on the website.
So it is the kind of course that people can do whilst working full time at the same time. It would be a squeeze, but it goes the same for any similar course, where it's like accountancy or similar, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is my view. If people have the dates in advance, they can just block out those dates. I think where people are going to probably be challenged is in the e-learning component, because the e-learning component, even though it's theoretical, it's kind of fundamental material that they need to just make them better facilitators. And it goes back to the rigor. You know, you've got to understand the subject, because this particular client group, they'll know when you don't understand the subject. So, you know, you've got to be pretty on it. And they're also very smart. So, you know, when they ask certain questions, you got to have answers. And if you don't have answers, you got to be honest about not having answers. But at least if you familiarize yourself with the territory, I think that'll just make them much, much better facilitators.
And does anyone need to be at all nervous about dealing with angry people? What can you say about that?
That's an interesting question. Look, you know, this is a volatile client group. You know, you can't exactly sit there and make a clumsy intervention, because if you do that, you know, you'll get pushback. And so you have to be very, very respectful of the client group that you're working with. And as you can imagine, you know, a lot of the men I work with are your typical alpha males, as you can imagine. And, you know, part of the training involves how to deal with difficult and challenging clients. And you'll always have difficult and challenging clients, because it's just the nature of the client group, and they will test you. They will test you and make sure that you can hold them in their anger, not in your anger, in their anger. So that does happen. But of course, within the context of the training, you know, we teach you how to facilitate. We teach you about group dynamics, and we teach you about what to be aware of when you're working with, whether it's groups or whether it's in a one-to-one or a couple's capacity. So I do think that, you know, you can't just rest on your laurels once you think you've got enough experience. You know, I've been teaching and I've been facilitating these programs for the last, nearly 23 years now. I can't sit back and just, you know, make flippant comments and flippant remarks without any pushback. So I've got to be hyper alert. I've got to be hypersensitive to the client group that I'm working with. But the truth is, Steve, that some of the most amazing human beings I've ever met have been the people on our programs. And you know that from your own direct experience. You know, they're rock solid, they're caring, they're kind. That's probably why they get as angry as they do. But, you know, these are very, very interesting. This is a very interesting client group.
And you mentioned, you know, clients and groups. Is there kind of corporate work or advisory work?
Well, look, this is a conversation that I think we've had this conversation. No, we haven't had the conversation. The conversation that we have had, which is about specific programs for executives.
Sure.
So executive anger management.
Challenging time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, you know, these are individuals that, because of the nature of who they are, because they're really in the public domain, they tend to want to do one-to-one work.
Right.
And, you know, that's really good money doing one-to-one work. But I will do what I can, as I've said, is to push them to do group work, because I think there's so much wisdom there. But of course, I take on one-to-one work whenever I need to do. But the point that I want to make is that companies, look, anger in organizational settings are still very big taboo. They rather send somebody to a program,
right, yeah,
where they are not in the organization, but they actually attend a program, but the company pays for their program. And, you know, we do have, over many years, a high percentage of people who do that. In the early days, we thought we could get away with delivering anger management programs in organizations. It's the big elephant in the room, and it's too much of a taboo.
Yeah.
When it comes to, say, for example, delivering to psychiatrists in the NHS, or to nurses in the NHS, or to social workers in social services, or maybe prison wardens, that's a different conversation, because we're teaching them how to deal with people who act their anger out towards them.
Right.
And it's a massive, massive marketplace. It's an international marketplace. And it's just about, you know, being able to make headway. The bulk of my work is people are sent from organizations to attend our programs. It's cost effective. It means it's private, and they don't have the stigmas associated with being angry in an organizational setting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to unpack there, there's more and more work coming in that's advisory with frontline workers. And although the corporate work tends to be more intimate at this point in proceedings. And what we've both been working on that this week with a third party is a more kind of communication skills and emotional intelligence skills within company cultures that are being challenged right now, isn't it? Because a lot of the anger management work, and some people watching will know this, is often about emotional intelligence and communication is where a lot of the tactics and strategies originate from.
Yes, absolutely.
So when people start working, do they need to be supervised for a certain amount of time? Do they need to be insured? What are the operational logistics of being an anger management therapist?
So, as I was saying earlier on, one of the important components to this is that we want to work with a very, very high caliber individual. That's what we want to work with. And we want to be able to spot them. We want to isolate them. And then we also want them to deliver programs on our behalf, whether it's in English or any other language. I'd like to get to the point where all I ever do for the next 10 or 15 years, if I live that long, of course, is to feed that work to people who are trained by us so that I can just continue training up trainers. That's what I'd love to do. Mm-hmm. If they are delivering programs on our behalf, they need to be supervised. And of course, they need to have their training programs videoed so we can look back at them and we can isolate whether there are any problems that need to be dealt with. But usually what will happen is that every time somebody completes a program, they fill in an evaluation sheet. That sheet comes directly back to us. We will go through that sheet. And if we identify that there are issues that have come up, of course, what we'll do is we'll address that with the facilitator or coach. But that's only people who we pass future work on to. If people want me to supervise them, I'm more than happy, and the prices are, of course, on our website. But they don't necessarily need supervision. When it comes to insurance, I'd love to know that everybody's insured because we all need to cover our backs. However, having said that, I don't think a single person in the UK has ever been sued for misconduct. I know through the BACP, people have been struck off, but they've not been sued by a third party.
Yeah.
But certainly every year you'll get a chunk of counselors and psychotherapists being removed from the BACP or the UKCP for misconduct.
And how soon after finishing training could people start promoting their services?
Well, look, I would like people to already start setting up their websites, printing up their business cards, starting to plug into social media at least 3 months before the program completes, because they've still got to drive the business once they leave. It's fantastic to pay your money to attend the Training the Trainers program. That is fantastic. That's the easy part. The difficult part is to reach out to a vast international marketplace. Mm-hmm. The advantage that you have is you are certified by the British Association of Anger Management, which is already recognized by the BACP. And a lot of people are trained by us because of their BAAM recognition. That holds them in good stead. And of course, it gives them the kudos because we are an organization that is taken very, very seriously in the UK.
And how about the payment? How does that work?
Basically, the training is £4,600, excluding VAT. But I also know that if you are outside of England, it's possible that you don't have to pay VAT, but there are additional costs, and the additional costs is doing the weekend intensive, but at this point, we're not delivering weekend intensives until further notice. Okay. They would have to attend one of the Zoom programs between now and November before they can actually participate in the Training the Trainers program.
Yeah.
And that was £495 for the Zoom program and £645 for the weekend intensive. That's the first thing. The second thing is there is an hour-and-a-half interview with me and Manuela, and that's a cost of £200. And then there's a basic administrative cost because we've got to send and post and ship stuff to people all over the world.
Right.
And that's £125. Okay. But the actual price of the training is really, really reasonable. We've dropped it down by at least £5,000 simply because we don't have to pay for locations.
Right.
You know, we don't have to pay for venues anymore. I don't have to.
So just to be clear, we're now, because we don't need to, because we've saved so much on venues, we're passing that saving on to the trainees.
Correct. Absolutely. And it's really, it's just so convenient for me. I don't have to do any travel. And, you know, having that expense reduced, I think, is a huge advantage for people who want to participate in our programs. And we had to find a solution for it. And I think it's a great solution. I don't think there's any other costs other than their insurance. And we have information about insurance for them as well. And then, of course, the only cost that they're going to have to endure would be the retreat program, because with the retreat program, they will actually have to pay for the retreat costs, their accommodation costs, meal costs, and how to get there, etc. Besides that, that's really it. So it's really good value for money as far as we're concerned. And we hope we'll have at least anything between 8 and 12 people attending the first program. And there's already a big demand for it, which is great.
So roughly looking at about £5,000 plus the VAT for an 8-month diploma. About sort of 10 hours training a week.
Well, it's the 10 hours of e-learning a week, and then it's 3 hours a week excluding holidays, which is the Zoom program, which they'll be attending live with me. And that will be videoed as well, so they can always go back to the videos to watch the videos as and when they get confused or they get stuck about something.
And you mentioned that the eventual diploma is accepted by the major organisation that regulates counselling.
Yes, well, look, I know that it's recognised by the NHS, by social services, by services. It's recognised by the police. It's recognised by a whole range of major charities because we do work with them. It's recognised, and we've given the seal of approval by the BACP, which is the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. And we also follow the BACP's Code of Conduct, which is really important in terms of the work that we do. But, you know, we work with multinationals and we work with nationals, whether it's Coke or whether it's Ford or whether it's the Overground or the Underground, whether it's BA, you know, major players send their people to attend our programs.
So it's super official. It's now at a more affordable rate than it has been for a long time because we're passing on the savings from the venues to the trainees. And the next course starts in November. But we do want trainees to have done one of the forms of intensive coursework before starting training.
Absolutely. They've really got to know. Sorry, they really got to know the program, and also gives them insight into their own anger by participating in a program like that.
And the next one starts in November.
The trainer program starts next November. But we have our next training at BA1 and BA2. Well, the Zoom program I know starts in September, mid-September. So if people are interested, they've really got to make a decision sooner than later. And of course, book it, pay for it, and attend it. Yeah,
well, I mean, Britain, America, the rest of the world, they need those anger management specialists right now.
Absolutely.
So there's never been a better time.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, thanks enormously. Anything that I've completely neglected to ask you about that you're very, very keen to tell the viewers about Anger Academy?
Look, I think there's one question that you asked about payments. So what we do, once somebody actually makes a decision to do the program, they give us a 50% deposit. And then I think it's about 45 days before the program, they need to pay the balance.
I see.
And then I don't think that there's an agreement at this point about if they decide to cancel. But if you cancel, I think if you cancel within 45 days of the program beginning, you will not be getting your money back. But
Okay.
I'm very aware that's not on our website,
Right.
but it will go on our website.
Okay.
It's very important that it's there.
Right.
Because it might be that we fill up and we have to turn people away. And if people start canceling, then of course, we're not going to be giving them money back.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. So if you think you've got what it takes to become one of BAAM's anger management counselors, then you want to get on to anger.academy right now. You can find a lot of the information that Mike and I have been talking about. Watch the video again if you need to, and make your decision. It's a growing field, and most of all, you'll be helping people. You'll be literally saving lives.